Auditory phonetics. It focuses on the perception of sounds or the way in which sounds are heard and interpreted. So, under this heading or in this discipline, we study the way a listener listens to sound and perceives them as meaningful messages and interpret them. So, this branch of phonetics is from the receiver's point of view. It deals with the other important participant in verbal communication, the listener. I mean, communication only takes place when there are two participants, the speaker and the listener. So, in articulatory phonetics, we discuss what it is that takes place with the speaker, and in auditory phonetics, we discuss what it is that takes place with the listener. So, it's a field of linguistic studies which has to rely heavily on biology and more specifically on anatomy and physiology. So, obviously, what takes place in the brain is very difficult to understand, but with the help of biology, and anatomy and physiology, we are able to understand how this could take place, how a message can be transformed from the sound waves into some message in the brain. So we discuss different parts of the ear and the neural system that takes the message from the waves into the chemical activity. So generally, two distinct operations take place when we listen a message. Firstly, the perception of sound by our auditory operators. Operators perceive that a sound has come to them, and the transforming of the information into neural sign, and it's sending to the brain. So the information is transformed on the neural path to the brain. Secondly, the analysis of this information by the brain, which eventually leads to the decoding of the message, the understanding of the verbal message. So obviously, the gray matter turns or decodes the message into a meaningful understanding, and then the whole communication takes place. So we can look at the mechanism that takes place in the biology of a person or anatomy of the person. So we have three parts of the ear: outer ear, middle ear, and inner ear. So the external ear collects and concentrates sounds energy. The ear canal carries sounds to the eardrum, a membrane separating the canal and the middle ear. In the eardrum vibrates in response to changes in sound energy, setting into motion three tiny bones. These three tiny bones of the middle ear vibrate against the fluid-filled cochlea, transmits the sound energy into fluid, and then comes the inside of the cochlea. Special nerves cells pick up the sound waves in the fluid and generate nerve impulses, and then comes the last stage, the auditory hearing. Nerves carry the nerve impulses from the cochlea to the brain, where they are received and heard as sound. So this is the mechanism that takes place when we receive a sound message, human speech sound, and we take it into the brain through this process. So vibration into neural signals that are transmitted via the auditory nerves to the central receptor and controller of the entire process, the brain, where we identify the incoming sound and actual sound with a specific pitch. So this is the mechanism involved in perceiving a sound by the listener. So this is how the sound wave touch the eardrum, and from eardrum it undergoes a certain process of transforming from one part of the ear to the other part, and how at last the sound waves are transformed into the chemical activity, and then they are decoded. So this is how this auditory phonetics work.